Yo guys, welcome to my Uberlab Helm Enchant guide for Path of Exile. In this video I'm going to show you how to make Uberlab Helm Enchants really profitable and how to fund all your characters through the league. I'm going to go over meta Helm Enchants, non-meta Helm Enchants, like when the good time is to sell it, and just some general tips on running lab, just focusing on Helm Enchants. So let's get into the video. So when you're first getting into lab enchanting, there's a few like money times to sell helmets, but you can sell helmets all the way through the league. The first 2 weeks of the league they usually sell pretty quickly, but I find like 2.5 weeks to 3.5 weeks into a league they kind of slow down a bit because there's a lot of people running lab at that time, so the market's going to be pretty full. But once the league starts dying down, the demand is going to be much higher than the supply, so that's when you'll start noticing your sales going back up again. And I find it's pretty consistent for the month and a half in the league or so, usually for the helmet that I enchant anyway. And then near the end of the league, especially when they announce the next league, it really takes a nosedive until the next league, but that's like 2 weeks left in the leagues. It's not too bad by then. So when grinding away to do your lab enchants, there's different ways that you can actually get more enchants per run. So there's two different ways you can do this. First, you can get a prophecy called Twice Enchanted, so you just pop the prophecy into your prophecy tab thing, and then when you kill a Zaro you'll get an extra enchant. Also, there's going to be dark shrines through a lab. There's going to be up to 4 dark shrines a lab, but I would recommend if they're like way out of the way, I wouldn't even bother getting them. But what these dark shrines can do is give you different buffs throughout the lab, so you can get like a shrine effect or whatever, like extra key on death, unique item, traps are turned off in the final room, yada yada. But you can also get twice enchanted with that as well. So if you get twice enchanted with the dark shrine and twice enchanted prophecy, you can actually get 3 enchants per run if you really wanted to. But I find trying to trade for a twice enchanted can be a pain and takes a lot of time, and the amount of time that it can take to trade for a whole bunch of twice enchanted, you can probably run another lab in that time. But if you want to go that way to save maybe long-term time, then that might be the route to go, but I usually just skip it. So when it comes to a build for doing Uberlab, it's good to have something that's kind of quick. You don't need like any of the speed farming thing where you got like 800% movement speed with Queen of the Forest or anything. You just need to be able to get a lab run in 5 or 7 minutes or so. It really depends on the layout. Some tips to make the lab a little quicker is just general knowledge on how the rooms work. Sometimes a lab will have a shortcut that will skip like 2 or 3 rooms, and then certain Azaro phases you can instantly phase him, or you'll have to wait like for things to come up. Like for instance, lieutenants, you'll have to wait for the second lieutenant to come up before he'll go away. So that type of thing factors into how quick that you can run the lab as well. For Pantheons, the Soul of Raslafa, the one that regenerate health potions, would be the one I would recommend, just in case you get stuck behind a trap wall or something. You can just sit there and wait for potions to recharge. For when it comes to your character itself, for flasks, I would recommend just 2 health flasks, a curse removal flask, because that will make the slowdown traps faster, because it's actually temp chains that they cast on you, so that will take the temp chains off and you can just go. An anti-bleed flask, and maybe a phasing flask for just running through hallways and stuff. Another tip for a build or whatever for getting through lab faster as well is having something with either high regen or mind over matter. So high regen will help you through the traps like immensely, because they'll barely do any damage to you and you'll just immediately regen back up. So when it comes to picking a helmet to enchant, you need to do your research a little bit, like follow some popular builds maybe, or see what the meta is, or if you're going more niche. I'll give like pros and cons to both following the meta and the niche. So we'll start off with the niche first. So when it comes to niche helmets, you want to try to figure out the way to flip the helmet, I'll call it, because you want to buy a cheap helmet, put an enchant on it, and then flip it for a lot of money. I personally enchant Abyssuses a lot, as you can usually buy them for 3 to 5 C, and you can sell enchants from like half of Exalt to like 40 Exalts if you get like the money one with Cyclone. For some nicher helmets, I would say Abyssus, Starkonjas, and Devoto's Devotion would be a pretty good start. You can usually get pretty good returns with those. You can also go with influence items as well. So like Crusader Influence, Elder, Shaper, Hunter, I forget the other 2, but you get the point. They won't sell as high, but they'll probably sell more often. Just find out which one's a popular one and use that one. I would say just make sure that the item level on those helmets are item level 84, as people will want to craft on them as well. When it comes to enchanting meta helmets, there's a few strengths and weaknesses to that as well. For the strengths, if you hit the enchant that you want, it'll probably sell pretty quickly. but the weakness to that is there's a lot of other people probably going to be doing that enchant, so you're going to have a lot of competition with it. So people like tanking the prices or whatever. In my opinion, going meta helmet's not really a good way to go. I'll give a few examples. The first example is whatever meta helmet it is, it's usually only used for like 1 or 2 builds. So out of all the 300-400 enchants or whatever, you're going to be looking for like 3 of them to even make money, and all the rest of the enchants will probably be garbage for that helmet. Another drawback with going with meta as well is every single new league you're going to have to learn a new market, because the meta always changes. Whereas if you can find a helmet that's more niche but at the same time will be used over and over and over again through the leagues, you can focus on learning different aspects of the game instead of just being like, alright, what helmet are we going to enchant this league? And usually it takes a little bit of time before the meta shows up, so you're going to be like a couple weeks behind right at the very beginning, where if you already know a market that you've been using for a couple leagues now, you can be like, alright, I want to enchant this helmet, we're going to go for it right now. For a few examples of helmets that were meta in the past, during the whole summoner meta, the Baron helmet was pretty good to enchant, because if you got either an aura, a minion damage or attack speed enchant on it, or a offering on there, it would usually sell pretty good. But anything else on there, it would not sell at all. So it's kind of like the pros and the cons of going meta with that. For Delirium League, I believe Alpha's Howl is a decent helmet to enchant with the whole Herald stacking thing, so it reduces reserved mana. So I guess you can squeeze out another Herald or something for that. So that's a helmet that was meta in Delirium League. I don't know of any others. I wasn't really following the meta too hard, so I wouldn't be able to find out. So after all that meta and non-meta explanation, we'd hit this awesome Helm Enchant that we got. Now we need to sell it. So a little bit of a selling tip is, for instance, Abyssus Cyclone Enchant goes for like 40 exalts. And if someone has it up for like 40 and then 39, a bunch at 39, don't go and post yours at 35 or whatever. Just go 38, because you're still going to have the cheapest one. And if you think someone's going to buy it faster if it's lower, that's not necessarily the case all the time. If someone only has so much currency but they want the helmet, sometimes someone will message me and be like, hey, you got this helmet for 39 exalts, I only have 35, would you take that? And sometimes they'll lowball you, be like, no, I can take it for 36 or 37 or something, and they'll usually bite on that. Don't be afraid to take up an offer, but don't be afraid to be like, oh my god, that's a lot of money, I don't want to negotiate, I want this item now. You can usually get a couple more X out of them if it's a really low offer. So that's why I don't like undercutting a ridiculous amount, because usually if somebody wants it, they'll just put an offer in for it. Alright, so when it comes to organization for me selling my lab enchants, I find it easier just to get a few premium stash tabs, and then I have them priced at a certain price. So this one's half an exalt, 1 exalt, 2 exalt, 3. And then I'll have an indie price one that will have like my bigger enchants, because you don't get them as often, but you get them once in a while. So the way I do it is I have like the 3, 2, 1. So I only got 1 in here, and then a bunch in here, and then a bunch in here, and a bunch in here. So earlier in the league I will do this, and then every few days or so, if say half these don't sell, I will take half of these out of here. So I'll go from left to right and move them over to my 5 exalt one, just keep dropping the price down just to get the income going, the sales going. And every time, like say I sold this one, so I'm just like, alright, this one sold, I will move one of these over to here, so I know those ones have been there for a while. Because if you just automatically throw them into the pile, then you're going to have an enchant that could have been sitting in there for a few hours when you transfer them over, and you can lose money that way. And like learning your enchants as well. So that's how I do my selling. It's just easier to find stuff. I don't use a quad tab, as trying to find stuff in a quad tab can be a pain sometimes. But that's how I organize my stash to sell Abyssuses. While running lab can be really fun and rewarding when you hit a big thing, sometimes you just don't get a good enchant for like ever. There's so many enchants in the game. The helmet that you are enchanting only needs melee skills or spells or auras or whatever. There's going to be times where you go and do like 10 labs and you're not going to get anything good because there's so many enchants out there. While a lot of people will complain that they wish they had an easier time, the amount of enchants out there, it's a necessary evil for the lab runners to be able to make money with it. If it was so easy to get an enchant, then no one's going to pay like 20, 30 exalts for a helmet because they can just go and get whatever they want when they want. But when you do hit the big one, it's just like such a good feeling. It's like, yes, I just beat a boss in Dark Souls or something that I was stuck on for like a couple hours or whatever. It's the best example I can give. Another cool thing about lab is once you get it down, get it working, figure out how the layouts work. If you only have like 3 or 4 hours to play through the week, you know, you can do a couple lab runs in like 30 minutes, get a decent enchant, run some maps until someone wants to buy it. Or if you just come home after work and you just want to relax, run some labs. That's what I usually do. You can pound out 3 or 4 in like 20 minutes and be good for the day and go and run some maps on a different character or bossing or whatever you like to do, and that helmet will always be up there for sale. Helm Enchants won't sell instantly. You usually have to have them in your stash, like if you're on peak time or something, people usually buy them. So you got to keep that in mind as well. It's not just like, all right, I got this awesome enchant, I'm going to put it up and sell it immediately. Usually it takes like a few days for a popular one and maybe like a week or so for a non-popular one. So you got to keep that in mind as well. Last but not least, have fun running lab. It's fun, it's rewarding. It can be frustrating at times, but also feel really rewarding. That's all I got for the video. If you guys enjoyed the video, please hit the like and subscribe button. It'll help the channel out a lot. If you have any questions, just leave a comment down below and I will try my best to answer your question. Thanks for watching and have a great day.